Tuesday afternoon to 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Browns players with the day off as the team getting ready to head to New Orleans to face the Saints Sunday coming out of the bye. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi on his read of what's going on with head coach Kevin Stefanski and general manager Andrew Berry.
Very odd, in my opinion, because think about this. They both have their new contracts, okay? So, and they're such partners. You know, why wouldn't they agree to, okay, this season's lost. We're going to try to win, but we're going to develop the team for let's get a jump start on next year. You would think that they would be free to do that, right? Yeah, embarking on their second contracts. But no, they keep talking about, we got to win, we got to win, we got to win. I think they're getting pressure from inside that there's a certain number they have to get to keep their jobs. That's the only thing I can conclude. They're under pressure to win, even though they got those contract extensions. Both Kevin and Andrew, over the last week, just gave off the vibe that they're lacking energy, lacking enthusiasm. They seem beaten down, and it's probably more than just the 2-7 record, because they should have the confidence that, well, we're here to rebuild this thing now, and let's start the rebuild in any way we can right now. And yet both of them keep stressing, we got to win, we got to win, we got to win. So I get the feeling that message is coming through from someone else.
With that, let's welcome in Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Jack, maybe, I don't, certainly if you end up with 2 wins, it's not a good look when you expect to be contending for an AFC championship. But they just got extensions. I don't know that. I guess if you tell me they are going to perform that poorly, maybe they are looking at that. I don't know.
I think actions speak louder than words. They moved off Amari Cooper and they brought in Cedric Tillman to get more snaps. They've moved off Zadarius Smith and they've brought in Isaiah McGuire to get more snaps. So their actions say they're willing to give these young guys a chance, young guys they've developed in their system, drafted a couple of years ago. So I think they are committed to the future. They're looking at the bigger picture. But at the same time, in the interviews, they never give away too much. They're not going to go, oh no, we're giving up, we don't care about winning, because that would just demoralize the entire locker room. You want these guys need to go out and compete. If you're Elijah Moore, you need to go out and have a really good rest of the season, because either you want to prove the Browns should extend you, or you want to go get money in free agency. You just can't turn around in a sport like the NFL and go, hey, half your year this year, yeah, we're giving up. It would just be completely crazy for any GM or head coach to do that. So while they might not be blunt with the beat writers, and that might not be something the beat writers are happy with, they're going to give a very clean and a very scripted answer. Let the actions speak louder, and the actions are saying they're willing to give Cedric Tillman, they're willing to give Isaiah McGuire a chance. We've seen some other young guys step up, Diabate, over Devin Bush. So they're willing to trust the young guys.
So I know you're in an article for the Orange and Brown Report just about creating more cap space for the 2025 Browns. Take us through that and kind of where they are.
Yeah, there's lots of doom and gloom around, the Browns are in a bad spot because of X contract, Deshaun Watson's contract. It doesn't help, but they're still in a very strong spot where they can create plenty of money and spend a vast sum next year. If they want to be the largest spending team in the NFL next year, while getting rid of some bad deals, like, hey, they might look at Jedrick Wills going off the books, they might look at Jack Conklin, they might want to move off of Dalvin Tomlinson, Thornhill. They can easily do that. So yeah, there's lots of doom and gloom, lots of people saying, oh, the Browns are destroyed on the salary cap. The facts of the matter just don't stack up. So I've broken them all down, everything exact numbers, not just, hey, this one contract, it's all gone wrong. They're in a perfectly good space for 2025.
So the other thing I know you wrote an article about is how and when the Browns can get out of Deshaun Watson's contract without it kind of doing dramatic harm to the salary cap.
Yeah, obviously the easiest way to get off his contract would he gets suspended and they can clear off $92 million, and that's financially still remains the dream. But talking real terms, the way they're most likely to deal with it is they're going to restructure his contract with the new league year in 2025. Even if he sits on the bench, who knows? He could do what he did for the Texans and he plays scout team safety. Doesn't matter what happens. They could send him home. That's not up to me. That's just looking at the money. They still restructure him. They restructure him again on the first day of the league year in 2026. And then on the second day of the league year, they post-June 1st cut him. So that's a case that financially it makes sense. And what that would do for the numbers is 37 million in 2025, 46 million in 2026, and then it's 89.5 million in 2027. While that might seem like a large number, in all honesty, once we get there, the salary cap's probably 50, 60, probably 75, 80 million bigger than it is now. So that it's easy for them to manage. Also, we're talking about managing that number in 2027 and not tomorrow. And they can still spend a really, really large sum, be up there with the top teams in the league for spending, just because they'll backload those new deals. So they're in a perfectly good spot. If they can get a good quarterback next year, who knows whether that's the draft or it could be a trade, free agency, they can still go and make the playoffs with ease.
So along those lines, Kirk Cousins is a name that's been floated out there, and I know you've kind of thought about that. What would it look like? How could they target Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, for me, I can see him on the trade market. If they get to the end of the season and they don't win a playoff game, then they'll probably look at, hey, we've got Michael Penix in the wings, ready to go. They've spent a first-round pick on him. Kirk Cousins controls his future. He's got a no-trade clause, so he could say, actually, I want to go somewhere where I've got experience with the head coach, Andrew Berry, good GM, let's get the deal done, go and play with Kevin Stefanski on a loaded roster. I think Cleveland makes a lot of sense where they can go, look, we're not going to draft a guy this year. We'll bring you in for 2 years. We might draft someone in 2026 and then they can develop behind you, but you've got 2 years. Let's go and try win a Super Bowl. Come to Cleveland. We'll spend all this money on putting a great team around you. He's only going to cost $27.5 million in a trade because that's what's left in the contract. You restructure that number, you're looking around $6.5 million. So easily doable with the Deshaun Watson contract for everyone that's worried about that. And what might it cost you? Maybe the third round pick you got from the Bills from Amari Cooper. Why not? I think Kirk Cousins would be a fantastic match for this team. Kevin Stefanski knows him, and instantly you hit the ground running, and you're talking about playoff wins in 2025. So all this doom and gloom of everything's gone wrong, suddenly we can have 2 years where we talk about playoff wins and then draft that guy next year and transition into the future.
So last week when Andrew Berry met with the media during bye week, he was asked about the salary cap and where they sit. He said that they will have the ability to do anything they need to do to the roster. Do you see the pathway to do that pretty clearly?
Yeah, I think it's easily there. They can be incredibly aggressive, and they're going to go out in free agency. They're going to let some guys go, and then they're going to go and get talent in free agency because they will enter the draft with no needs. Lots of people look at the roster and it goes, hey, we're missing this, we're missing that. They'll allow people to depart, and then they'll go out and spend in free agency. They're not going to probably spend silly money. So if you're looking at, hey, are they going to go bring in 5 guys that are earning 20 million plus? No, that's never really been their style. They'll look for that sort of 5 to 15 million range. Who knows? They might go wild and go, actually, we want to go get T. Higgins. Let's spend 25 million a year on him. But they don't need to spend a load of money to get talent. You just got to get above average starters across the board in free agency and then go and add more talent in the draft.
Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
I just picked up all the Ohio Lottery holiday scratch-offs.
They're multiplying.
Yeah, multiplying. With the chance to multiply my prize by 200 times with holiday bonus millions.
No, they're multiplying.
Oh, you're in a daze.
A holidays.
Snap out of it. Because even if we don't win instantly, all the holiday games offer a second chance to win up to 1,000 times the price of the ticket.
Wait, did you say up to 1,000 times?
Sure did.
We continue talking Browns with Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, God, this is about DTR. If Jameis doesn't play well, you have to see what you have in DTR. I mean, you have to see what you have in him moving forward. Can he be a starter? Maybe not, but can he be a decent backup? Probably if he develops the right way. So let's see what we have in him if Jameis doesn't play well. It will be interesting to see how he looks if he gets another opportunity to start and get better from there. So we have to see, but I'm not giving up on Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I mean, we don't know what he can be until we see him play again on a football field. That's all I got to say, you guys. Let me know what you guys think about that, and appreciate you guys, and you guys have a good one. Peace.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jack, I get it. At some point in time, they probably do want him to play a couple of games, 3 games in a row. By and large, when you get a guy in the 5th round as a quarterback, he's a developmental guy. He played probably a lot quicker than they wanted to. Again, yeah, I can see them playing, but if he is a high-level backup that you feel comfortable, can start a couple games, win some games for you, that's what you want when you take a quarterback in the 5th round. You're not expecting him to be a starter.
Yeah, for me, the first question they want to answer is Winston potentially that bridge quarterback for next season? So if Winston can continue winning and sits around 500 on what he has for the season, then you've got that conversation of do we just pay him $8 million for next season and we go, you come in and you be our starter for a year if we decide to bench Deshaun Watson for the whole of next year. If that isn't the case, and we might know over the next sort of 2 to 4 games if that's a direction they want to go, and if Winston keeps playing well, you play him. If not, I agree with the caller. That's the point where you go, look, if Winston wins sort of 1 in the next 4, or say he loses 3 of the next 3, then you go, let's see what DTR's got. The trouble you're potentially going to have if you look to next year and you might have a quarterback room of Watson, a starter, and maybe someone you get in the draft, there's not a spot there for a developmental player or a backup like DTR. So it's probably a dynamic where DTR needs to prove that he can be the bridge, or he can get to a stage where they go, actually, we don't want to draft someone. We're going to roll again with whether it's Winston and DTR, or whether they trade for Cousins and they're happy with DTR as the backup because they don't want to draft someone. But it's very real that they might look like they have that pair, and if they like someone in the draft, DTR's probably the odd man out and heading out of the building.
Yeah, and someone else will snap him up and give him the opportunity to develop as well. He's shown that he's going to get some looks in the NFL. It may not, as you mentioned, it may not be here. This is from the Bleacher Report. Every team's biggest weaknesses and moves they can make now. They say Browns quarterback weakness, and again, could it be Winston? We'll see. Wide receiver, that's an interesting one. Left tackle, when I look at that, if DeJuan Jones plays well at left tackle, I don't know that that's a need, but I guess it's still a question mark. Linebacker, I just don't think they value it. Interior defender remains to be seen. When I think about the Browns, Jack, and I don't know how you feel about it, I feel like they need somebody that they can get the ball in his hands and he will threaten the defense. Could it be Nick Chubb if he's healthy? Maybe. David Njoku is kind of that guy. They need more of those guys.
Yeah, I think if we got to the position where they go out and they say, actually, let's go for it, let's go get T. Higgins, you could have 5 skill guys of Nick Chubb, David Njoku, T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman. That is chaos there. That would be a phenomenal group to send out there. I think they first want to see, can Elijah Moore step up there? I know the comments were, do they turn more to thrash? I want to see if Cedric Tillman's happy being potentially the top guy with Jeudy, they can have Moore as a third receiver. That could work for a year. I don't agree with linebacker in the list. I don't get the fascination with keep adding linebackers. For me, they're in a really, really good spot. I like the trio of JOK, Hicks, and Diabate. Devin Bush has been good when called upon. I think Reed is going to be a solid depth guy, and Watson there is shown to be useful. So for me, anyone saying, hey, linebackers need, I wonder what team they're actually watching, because for me, if I'm looking at position rooms across the entire roster, the one I feel best about is linebacker. So no, not agreeing on that one at all. But yeah, I think it'd be fun to add a T. Higgins to this trio. and that would cause fits for teams next year.
Yeah, you'd have a lot of big guys that are athletic that can go get it without question. This one is interesting and it's concerning. It's really concerning. 33rd team tweets this out. Fewest yards gained per play in 2024. Browns are the worst. 4.2. Bears, Patriots, Raiders, Titans. Those are all the teams that the Browns are battling with. At 2 and 7 for those high top draft picks, if you will. So again, the offense they switched to hasn't worked, and I would expect them to move off of that because I don't see how you can just ignore that and run it back. It's been historically bad.
I'm intrigued to see where we stand at the end of the season. So I'm almost treating this year as 2 completely different seasons in one. So I'm willing to write off the first half of the year and go from when Winston came in 2 weeks, 2 weeks plus the bye ago, and go, let's see when we get to the end of the season, how's that time been? Because it might work really well. And who knows, that the Ravens game was brilliant. The Chargers game was bad. Is it somewhere in the middle? Is it more to one end and after a bye they look a lot stronger? Because they could, with the Jameis roller coaster, you could easily be winning the majority of your games left. And then anyone getting really excited about the draft is suddenly a bit depressed because we've won too many games. But then people that care more about on Sunday than the future are going to have an enjoyable end of the season because football's fun again. So it's one that I'm intrigued to see how it goes, but I expect those numbers to dramatically rise because Jameis is going to send the ball downfield. If guys like Jedrick Tillman are going to get open, they'll get yards on the board. And that's good for all the players.
Jack Duffin from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Also take a look at what a David Njoku contract extension might look like. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yes, it's Daryl from Dixon. I know that Andrew Berry's getting a lot of heat for some of his previous draft choices, like Jedrick Wills. But with Jedrick Wills, we talk about how wonderful Bill Callahan was. Do we not think Callahan had a hand in us getting Wills? Same with Siaki Ika. I mean, obviously now hindsight, is not a good pick, but Jim Schwartz was raving about the guy. I mean, I thought that was something he wanted. So, I mean, we're starting to see a few players that Berry drafted, start to come on a little bit. Isaiah McGuire, obviously he was the guy that jumped up for JOK. I mean, he's injured now, but he's been fantastic. Emerson's taken a step back, but he's looking pretty good. I say it's a little bit too soon to cut bait on Andrew Berry. I think we need to give him a chance to see what he can do with some higher draft picks that he hasn't had previously. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jack, people that watch the show know I agree. I'll listen to the people that want to move on from Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry because it's been a really bad year. Their job is to go from where they're at, which is kind of mediocre. They've a couple playoff. You got to be a consistent playoff team. First year after the extension, they just haven't. It's been not good. That they've got to rebound, and now you got to make it a consistent playoff team.
I just want to say that's not my voicemail, even though I fully agree with what the guy was saying. I do not have an accent like that. But it's one that I think Andrew Berry should have been stronger because if you look at all of the analytics, they loved Wirfs over Wills. And I think he probably just went to Callahan. And I understand that. If I was a first-time GM, I wouldn't be like, all the numbers and all the data says I should take Wirfs. I'm going to lean on a guy like Bill Callahan and go, who do you want? So for me, that's the only logical reason of why we got the guy that wasn't the analytics darling out the two. And then with Eco, it was like, nothing of analytics says you go and take the big defensive tackle. But it was someone that apparently Schwartz continued to rave about and wanted through the process. And he's sort of... I think he needs to stand up for himself more, Andrew Berry, and go, no, I'm I'm not going to work within the building. I get why you want to do that, because you want to work with your coaches. You want to bring these people in because the experience and talent they bring. But at the same time, there are reasons why they're coaches and not GMs. So I don't think Andrew Berry should bow to that pressure. And it's tough with a small sample size because people adore John Dorsey for his drafting. But at the same time, if it weren't the Cleveland Browns trading up, he would have drafted Johnny Football in KC because he loved him in the draft process. It's out there. It's everywhere. And it's one that it's tough to know. And Nico Collins was someone that the Browns were zoned in on and going to pick. And then suddenly he goes, I think it was 1 or 2 picks early to the Texans. It's such a tough thing to look at drafting because we only see such a small picture. Andrew Berry's had literally no picks within the first 2 rounds. And that makes it tough to judge on him in the same way. Like, hey, if you have a couple of picks in the top of the first round, your naturally returns are going to look better. But once you look beyond that, did Dorsey have any success outside of the top 36 picks? Not really. Whereas Andrew Berry's brought a lot more talent through. Emerson, not looked good this year, but been a good player overall. Maguire's looking good. Tillman's looking good. There's been a lot of hits and players that they're not going to be stars, but when you don't draft outside of those top picks, you're not going to hit stars. But are you hitting players that are constantly performing and elevating? I think he's doing an okay job. The question is now, can he do a great job? I expect to see more trade downs, more picks, very much like the Eagles, and that should then lead to better results down the line.
All right. I know you wrote an article. What can we learn from the Browns' snap counts in the 2024 season so far?
So it's one that there's been a few changes. So they've not relied as much on sort of a sixth O-lineman. That it was quite a lot of what they did last year, and I expected them to do more of it. But outside of the second week of the season, they've not really relied on that sixth O-lineman going out there and helping with the blocking. And it could just be a factor of the injuries stacking up. Maybe with all 3 tackles back, do we see that? And the other part of interest really has been what's happened at defensive tackle. Last year, it was 60% of snaps for Dalvin Tomlinson, and then the other 3 guys had 40%. They've actually asked Shelby Harris to step up, and he's playing close to 60% this year. And then with the other mix, Hurst has more or less completely dropped off, all trending towards him probably being in his final season in Cleveland. But yeah, there's a few interesting pieces, and we haven't really seen the answer of EX a little bit early, but I'm keen to see where Isaiah McGuire stands over the next 2 to 3 weeks, because if they ask him to step right up and replace Zadarius Smith and it goes well, that is an absolute steal of a draft pick that they've got there.
All right, so let's take a look at this. So, again, this is from one of your articles, 2025 tight end room predictions. You have David Njoku, a free agent at $2 million and a day 3 pick. So Njoku, and then just some guys filling out that are quality players, but not killing you salary cap wise or draft capital wise. And then you also project what you wrote another article, kind of projecting what a David Njoku extension would look like. Take us through those 2.
Yeah, so where they've relied a lot more on 3 wide receivers, and as I mentioned, if they potentially go the T. Higgins route, if you've got T. Higgins, you've got Jerry Jeudy, you've got Cedric Tillman, you're not realistically going to get a second tight end on the field very much, because you'd rather have Cedric Tillman out there than whoever your second tight end is. So I think it's a luxury they just don't need to spend on. Akins hasn't got as many snaps this year, so go and find someone on a prove-it deal, something like that, and go and bring them in. They've got 11 draft picks, so pretty much every position room, as things stand, is probably going to have a draft pick in it next year. That's just what's going to happen when you've got that many selections. Obviously, they could trade them into future years. And I think there's some guys going to get extensions here. So I've said Njoku, I expect Myles Garrett to get extended this offseason, and I could see Wyatt Teller getting an extension as well. But that will probably all happen around June, July time. Won't happen too early in the off season because those things tend to get left a bit later. But I think somewhere in that 15 to 16 million a year range, tie Njoku down. Has he been elite in the top 3-4 in the league? No, but he's comfortably in the top 8. And I think if you move on from him, it's not an easy position to go and just grab someone off the street. You can get average, but I don't want average. I want to be top 8 in all the position rooms, and David Njoku does that for you. And with Jimmy willing to spend money, the Browns are in a strong enough financial position. Why not keep the talent around?
All right, before I let you go, take a look at this. This is from CBSSports.com's ranking the NFL last place divisional teams by future outlook. Bears 1, Seahawks 2, Giants 3, Panthers 4, Patriots 5, Jaguars 6, Raiders 7. They list the Browns as 8th and in the toughest spot outlook-wise for the future. Deshaun Watson's contract is Cleveland's biggest hurdle. Team would incur a dead cap hit of nearly $73 million if they were to release Watson after June 1st of next year. That's bad, but not as bad as the $85 million hit the Broncos took when they released Wilson. The decision, while costly, has proven to work out for Denver, and Brown should strongly consider it. We touched on this earlier. I'm guessing you don't agree with them being in that dire financial thing, and there are ways around the Watson contract.
Yeah, unfortunately, the numbers just don't stack up with the emotion. And I fully get why the emotion's there if they're in a bad spot. I certainly could think of better ways to spend $92 million than on Deshaun Watson potentially on the bench. But they are in a much better position than people care to look at just the headline numbers when you start actually looking into it and how they operate. And then just in terms of the article of like, oh, they need to replace Amari Cooper. Well, Cedric Tillman's done more this season than Amari Cooper. And while I would back Amari Cooper to be a better player, when we're talking over what you're going to get in the next couple of years, I think we're going to see better returns out of Cedric Tillman than we would Amari Cooper, because just catching up with one of them, and one of them's just developing into what should be a good player. Is he going to hit Amari Cooper level of career? Probably not, but there's no reason he can't be a sort of 600, 700, 800 yard a year wide receiver. So I remain positive that he's there. Isaiah McGuire can step into the Zadarius Smith shoes, and even just producing 80% of that, you're saving $30 million or even more than that, $30 million basically going from those two to what you're getting. And that's another $30 million you can go spend in free agency at other positions just by moving from Cooper to Tillman and from Smith to McGuire. And at that $30 million, hey, why not spend $25 million of that on T. Higgins, spend $5 million of it on wherever else you want to go on the roster. You could spend that on Kirk Cousins and upgrade the quarterback room. There's lots of places you can spend the money. So keep drafting good players, Andrew Berry. Develop them. They might take a year before they get into the actual starting lineup, but that's perfectly fine. I think this team's in a really good spot. They just need to answer the quarterback question. And playoffs again in 2025. I genuinely believe that's in play.
Jack Duffin, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight very much. Thanks very much, Jack. All right.
Great.
Jack Duffin, again, great stuff from the Orange and Brown Report. Nobody knows the salary cap better than Jack Duffin. Make sure you check him out on the Orange and Brown Report. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Fred Greetham straight ahead. Stay with us.
I just picked up all the Ohio Lottery holiday scratch-offs.
They're multiplying.
Yeah, multiplying. With the chance to multiply my prize by 200 times with holiday bonus millions.
No, they're multiplying.
Oh, you're in a daze.
A holidays.
Snap out of it. Because even if we don't win instantly, all the holiday games offer a second chance to win up to 1,000 times the price of the ticket.
Wait, did you say up to 1,000 times?
Sure did.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Yesterday, Jedrick Wills, who was inactive for the Browns' last game, spoke about the decision for him not to play against the Ravens.
I decided myself that I made a business decision not to play after the Bengals game, going into that Ravens game, because I was injured. And then the next week was when I received the news. So, I got hyperextended on the very first play. I kind of felt it, but we were going up on the ball, and everybody was getting set, so I was like, well, I'll stay in. If it hurts later and I got to come out, then it is what it is. But I ended up finishing the game. The next day I got some treatment and stuff, and my knee was really swollen. I couldn't really bend it, so played out the week how it went, and I wasn't ready for game time, so I didn't end up playing. Earlier on in the week, it was just more kind of like they evaluated what it was. I had a lot of fluid in there. I had to get drained. I had some swelling. I had some damage to my cartilage, and I have a bone bruise that I've been dealing with since last year. So they just kind of evaluated it. I didn't practice the first 2 days that were full speed, and then we had a padded practice. I didn't practice. I tried to do some stuff on the Friday, didn't feel good, and then they just declared me as inactive after that Friday practice. I think upset isn't a good word to use. I would say it's more frustrating, but I mean, it's not my decision. I mean, I can only do what I can do. So.
With that, let's welcome in Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Fred, it's not a great look because there are questions. You know, you see the video. I'm sure you've seen it where Jedrick's not really playing to the end of the whistle. The one thing about him that I've said, when he's healthy, when he's completely healthy, he's an adequate left tackle. When he gets banged up at all, he can't really play. And if you can't play banged up in the NFL as a lineman, you probably can't play very long in the NFL.
No, I mean, and you see how many guys are injured on the Browns, and how much they've missed, especially on the offensive line the last few years. And you think of Joe Thomas, he never missed a snap until like his last year, and then he knew that was the end of the line. It's like, these guys are all playing through, different things. And it's, I appreciated Jedrick being candid. You don't really want to criticize somebody when they're candid with you, but I think in the locker room, those words might not go over well. Business decision, because it sounds like then you decided not to play. We know how the Browns have, they give no information at all. They leave everybody hanging on the injuries. We have no idea how severe it is. Everybody's day to day, week to week's about the best you can get. And it sounds like he just declared that I can't go. I don't know if the trainers said, I think you can play. And he said, no, I'm not going to. But he's going to have to live with that decision. This isn't like Little League where, oh, you don't lose your position because of an injury. It's obvious when he was missing time, when I think James Hudson was his replacement, when he was able to go, he went right back in because they felt he was better right away. Now, when he's ready to come back now, I think they feel like they're getting at least as good a play, if not better, out of DeJuan Jones. And you have him, only in the second year of his rookie contract. And you have some upside there that maybe you have found your left tackle long term. And that would take a huge burden off because Wills is a free agent. He's in the last year of the fifth-year option. A lot of people were surprised they picked up the fifth-year option, 13, 14 million guaranteed. I think the biggest thing with him is because he was the 10th pick in the draft. Everybody expected, kind of like a Joe Thomas or a perennial Pro Bowler. I mean, he had 57 starts in his first, since he's been here. Every time he was active, he started. That game that he returned, I think it was before the Chargers game, was the first game he was active that he didn't start. So, this could be a wake-up call for him. Somebody asked me if they thought that he was, just kind of sticking to the Browns. I say, I don't see how you can do that because you're wanting to be a free agent, whether it's here with the Browns getting an extension or another team, and you certainly haven't put enough on the table this year to make somebody, give you the big bucks. Somebody will sign him if he becomes a free agent, but I'm not going to be shocked if he does get back in the lineup because we've watched the Browns long enough to know how many guys seem to get injured on the offensive line, and whether Conklin or Jones needs somebody to replace, he's going to be the guy to step in. It's kind of ironic, that he was a right tackle. They moved him to left tackle, and Jones was a right tackle, and they moved him to left tackle. And so who knows what's going to happen, but I think that's kind of like the Wally Pipp scenario where he sat out, Lou Gehrig stepped in, and the rest was history.
So I know you've written an article about this for the Orange and Brown Report. When you look at the Browns, what do you see as the state of the Browns right now?
I see a team that's not as bad as their record, but I think last year they, you could be candid and say they won some games they probably shouldn't have won, especially with some of the quarterback play they had. They made the playoffs. They were 11-6. I think the mistake the Browns made, if any, was overvaluing that they didn't have to make any changes. You saw what the Cavs did. I know it was a change of the coach, but you brought back the same players, but you made a major change with the coach, and you saw what's happened so far. I'm not saying you have to make a major change with the coach, but I'm saying on the players, they brought back that defense, everybody the same, thinking they would be exactly the same. It's not. They're now middle of the pack defense. So I think they're better than that, but they're playing kind of just average. They're not taking the ball away, and that's the big thing that separates a lot of defenses. On offense, I think it's been a domino effect, but I still at glaring points to the quarterback play. I don't care what the coaches, Andrew Berry, keep wanting to say it takes all 11, and I get all that. But somehow, some way, when I watch games on Sunday, the quarterback finds a way to win a game or two that maybe even if the rest aren't helping a lot. So I just think that it unraveled from the get-go, and I think some of it, the coaches, front office, they all have a part in this, and I think a lot of it was kind of keeping the status quo. You really didn't see any major additions other than Jerry Jeudy and re-signing some of the guys you had here. So if anything, the silver lining, this will be a wake-up call that they have to look really hard at the value they put in some of the guys on this team and what they're doing overall.
All right, so that begs the question that, when you look at it, Browns were expected to contend in the AFC. They're instead contending for the first overall pick. Does somebody, normally when that happens in an organization, somebody takes the fall for it. Is it Andrew Berry? Is it Kevin Stefanski? Is it Paul DePodesta? Or do they just say, all right, it's one of those years?
It would have to come from the Haslams above, because I was at the press conference with Andrew Berry. He had obviously, or somebody in his office had done a lot of research on, what two-time coach of the years have done, because he went on a kind of a long list of the accomplishments that Kevin Stefanski and guys at his stage of his career had accomplished. So it sounded like he was, defending the coach, and, that's what usually happens. If it's up to Stefanski making decisions or Berry making decisions, I can see it being more down the line, down the river, the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, some of the offensive assistants they brought in this year, being the scapegoats. I don't know if I think a lot of it will depend on the final 8 games. In talking to Andrew Berry last week and even Kevin Stefanski this week, they seem a little kind of tense. I realize they're 2-7, but it's almost like they both signed contract extensions and they just didn't seem free and easy or free and loose. I don't know if they still feel like their jobs are in jeopardy or where they're at. But I think, in 8 games, if you don't go 4-4 the rest of the way, I think anything can happen, including changes at one or both those positions. But, who knows? I mean, it's like they talked about one thing, our number 1 through 100 goal is to win, but also to develop players along the way. They think they can do both. Well, so we'll see. We'll see. Starting this week, I think it's a winnable game against the Saints, and then you play the Steelers at home on Thursday night. What do? You come out and win a couple games here. Maybe you get something going and you feel like you can, I don't know if you can make the playoffs. You'd almost have to run the table at this point. But I think there's to get things pointed in the right direction, build for next year starts in these 8 games.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Now I can step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports4CLE. He'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Fred Greetham, senior analyst from the Orange and Brown Report. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, so I know everybody's looking for the 2025 QB draft class, but I'm just going to save the time, energy on your research on these QBs. Don't do it. From draft analysts, they said this class is not very good. They prefer that if you're looking for a QB that you wait till 2026. So if that's the case, we need to run back with Watson, but this time with Kevin Stefanski's offense fully implemented because Ken Dorsey's offense and his ideas for his offense is not working. So, yeah, that's all I called to tell you guys about. So I will be looking forward to the 2026 QB draft class so Deshaun Watson can then be a great player for the next franchise QB and we can get out of this contract. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Fred, I don't see that they're going to play Watson again. I could be wrong. But I also don't think just because you need a quarterback that you draft one. That's where you get in trouble. See the 30-some-odd names on the Browns jersey that's going to be added to. This quarterback class isn't great, but next one, if you don't have one of the top 2 or 3 picks, you're not getting the quarterback that everybody's talking about in the class anyway.
Yeah, you know, the Browns' strategy in 16-17 basically was to tank, and they had back-to-back number 1 picks, and Myles Garrett came out of that, Nick Chubb, and David Njoku, and Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward. But there's no guarantee, you know, that there's a guy there, and just because that you're going to pick the right one. You know, there was 4 supposedly top quarterbacks when they took Mayfield. We all know that it should have been either Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. You know, you could argue that Lamar Jackson was the best one. So, yeah, you don't force it, because I talked to Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network. He's the color analyst for the Chargers before that game, and he said he hadn't done a deep dive, but his initial talk or thoughts on the quarterback class were similar to the caller, that there wasn't anybody that just stood out as being the guy. You want to have the top pick when there's the guy, Joe Burrow, or, you know, Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning, guys like that you know are going to step in day one and be able to command, you know, and turn a team around. Everything else, if you take, just because you take the best quarterback in the class doesn't mean that he is the best quarterback every year. You know, he might be the best in 2024, but he might be a second round prospect. And just because there was nobody else there, or an end of the first round. So, you know, there is luck involved in the thing. And I don't know if you can calculate it. It's develop them. And so many thought Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he got paid, and now you look, there's just a gamble. There's just a reason there's 39 names on the Browns quarterback list since the team returned. And it also shows you why the Browns were so desperate to do what they did to get Deshaun Watson, thinking they had solved that problem, at least on the field. And I don't know if you bring him back. Andrew Berry had a chance last week and didn't really have a ringing endorsement. He said, I'm not going to get into anything until he's healthy. And so, you know, that's a good way to get out of that question. Could have said, oh, when he's healthy, he's our quarterback. That's what they said last year. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions to be made. I think your better bet, and I don't know if there's a guy out there, you know, somebody you could bring in and maybe pivot that you can win with now. I think if you feel you have a decent roster, and I think that's true, you got good players on this team that you can win with, you know, all you have to look, and even Deshaun Watson, as bad as he played in those first 6 games, if he would have just had 1 or 2 plays, or a penalty wasn't called to call back a touchdown, they would have won 2 or 3 other games. And you're right, you know, you're now 4-5 or 5-4. and I don't think it would be such doom and gloom. So I think if a Kirk Cousins is an option, a guy with a big contract, the Falcons might want to move on from with their number one pick, Penix there, or if there's somebody else out there that could step in for a year or two while you keep searching for that answer. But I just hate to go all in and say you got to draft one. Look at the quarterbacks, even the top ones. Caleb Williams is struggling. Bryce Young. There's no guarantee you're going to get the guy. If everybody thought Jaden Williams was the guy, the Bears would have took him at 1. If everybody thought C.J. Stroud was the guy, the Panthers would have took him at 1, not Bryce Young. So there's a lot that goes into it. I just think the better way to go is to try to win next year and try to take what you have, fortify what you have, and then make the decision. Is Jameis Winston? Can you find out in 8 games? Could he be the guy? Could DTR be the guy? Or, Watson? Or can you find somebody from another team, that could step right in immediately with this roster and win?
All right, before I let you go, thoughts about the Browns developing young players and particularly, with what's going on the next 8 weeks?
Yeah, they cleared the way for, Cedric Tillman by trading Amari Cooper. 3 games you've seen Tillman. I was a little skeptical because I thought Amari Cooper having a bad year here, but he was the best they had as far as proven. But Tillman has 21 catches, in those 3 games. He only had 3 catches until Cooper was traded. All of a sudden, he's looking like a legitimate number 2 or 3 receiver. And you're even seeing a little bit out of Elijah Moore, a little more out of Judy. On defense, we're going to see a lot more of Isaiah McGuire now. We saw Alex Wright come on last year. Unfortunately, got a season-ending injury. So McGuire's going to really have a chance, and Okoronkwo, and see what you have there. I like Zadarius Smith. I like Amari Cooper, but it makes sense. You have a 32-year-old defensive end, 31-year-old wide receiver. You're not going to have him likely on the team next year. So let's see what you have. And like we said with DeJuan Jones, if you can find your left tackle, then that's one less guy you have to draft, because you're probably, if you have to get a left tackle, you probably have to get a high-price free agent or draft one in the first round and look at the other positions. But I'm of the opinion you can make some key moves and you can get the thing right. And a lot of it starts with quarterback. I'm not going to blame everything on Deshaun Watson, but if you had any better play than what you had from him in those first 6 games, I am almost positive they would have won at least 2 more games. And it's a different story now. If you're 4-5, you're only like a game out of the playoffs, even at 4-5. So, we'll see what they do.
Fred Greetham, senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report, is always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Fred.
Thanks, Dave.
Fred
Good to
Greetham.
be with you.
Fred Greetham, make sure you check him out. He is the senior analyst for the Orange and Brown Report. Always really good Brown stuff. We turn our attention to the Cavs. Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Full court Cleveland straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Cavs, a win last night, now 12-0, best start in franchise history. They'll play again tomorrow night in Philadelphia against 76ers. Brian Windhorst, national NBA analyst, on the ceiling for this year's Cavaliers team.
When I'm looking at the standings, I'm seeing that the Cavs have a shot at the 1 seed. And that, when you're a number 1 or number 2 seed, that's how you get to the finals. You have that home court advantage. Like, I know that LeBron, I think his last year in Cleveland, he took him from the 4th seed, but that East was not strong. If you go look at how many times LeBron went to the finals, it was because he was always operating as the 1 or 2. Most of the years he was 2. 1 or 2 is the path to the finals, and you've got a 6-game lead on 3 right now. And those teams that you thought you were going to compete with for 3, like Milwaukee, like Philly, like New York, those teams are wheezing a little bit right now. Put that cushion on it, because there'll be a time in this season where the rain is going to fall. Into every season, rain falls. Build that cushion, because that's if you want to really achieve this year, getting that pathway is there.
With that, let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com, as well as co-host of Full Court Cleveland. And Sam, it's the Cavs, Celtics, and pretty much the rest of the East. So as long as you can continue to pad that, because Kenny Atkinson knows there's going to become struggles. There always is in an NBA season.
Yeah, that's just it. And we said before the season, Dave, that every game counts, right? Because this race in the Eastern Conference is expected to be so tight. I don't expect the New York Knicks to be as uneven as they've been at the start for the rest of the season. I'm assuming Paolo Banchero is going to get healthy at some point and come back and play for the Orlando Magic. And they're if we're talking about the Cavs, they give the Cavs kind of a matchup nightmare. Who knows what will become the Philadelphia 76ers and Milwaukee Bucks. So that's what Brian Windhorst just said. This start is so invaluable in terms of giving yourself a little bit of space and being able to ride out the potential wave of, struggles, injuries, those other things that can come during an NBA season. So, hey, 12-0, not only that, does it do all those things, but it really makes you believe, if you're the Cavs, we could really do something here. We're actually special. And, when we come together and play like this, the sky's the limit. And I think that they've set that tone for themselves early. And that's really, I think, going to be the biggest reward, I would say, out of this 12-0 start.
Well, you tweeted this out yesterday after the game. They become just the 8th team in NBA history. So only 8 have been at 12-0, and Cavs were 5 of the 7 teams previous. 71% of them that got out to that start reached the finals. 2 won it. The only team in 66 years to go 12-0, make the finals and lose. We're the 2016 Warriors, and we know who they lost to.
Yeah, I was going to say the Cavs had a hand in that 12-0 team not winning a championship. So that was the good news. And really kind of, even though it's a different Warriors team and different expectations, the Cavs wiped the floor with them on Friday night in Cleveland. So, it's you're setting not just franchise marks here, but NBA history. You think the NBA was formed in 1946 and only 8 other teams have done this. And most fans of the modern NBA would only remember the 2015-16 Warriors as a team that's done it. So they're in really exclusive company. And really that stat right there, I think, speaks to quite a lot in the fact that teams that started 12-0 tend to go far, whether it's conference finals, championship. It bodes well for the rest of the year. Now, obviously, there's 70 games left to go, Dave. We're still going to be doing this when the seasons change from now till winter till spring. If you're good enough, then it'll also be in the summer. So there's just, it's a marathon. But being in this exclusive company, historically, statistically, we've seen that this bodes well for teams that get off to these amazing starts.
Well, the other thing that's happened to Evan Mobley has kind of upped his game. It's morphed. Brian Windhorst, again, the same guy that we talked about, the national NBA analyst, on who he sees when he's looking at Mobley these days.
Kenny Atkinson has Evan Mobley playing like Draymond Green, which, he's obviously been in Golden State as an assistant for years. When Evan Mobley gets the rebound, just like when Draymond Green gets the rebound, he wants him to bring it up the court. And if you watched pretty much their offense last night especially, and you'll remember the three that LeVert hit in the corner in the fourth quarter, they were trapping Donovan a little bit, or Darius, because those guys are dominating right now. The ball would go to Mobley, and Mobley would get the ball at the top of the key, and he would turn into Draymond Green. He was kicking the ball to the corners and stuff like that. And I did not have Evan Mobley playing like Draymond Green on my bingo card. That's Kenny Atkinson. And that's also Evan Mobley seeing that and adapting to it. And so whether or not they keep hitting shots at this rate, whether or not Ty Jerome and Karis LeVert keep shooting like this and scoring like this, I'm not sure that can keep up. But the systems that I see in place are what's more sustainable.
And again, that's what the coach is responsible for. I get what Brian Windhorst is saying. I think Evan Mobley is more concerning to a defense with the ball in his hands than Draymond Green was. I think Draymond Green's a great player, but I think he threatens a defense much more than Draymond Green does.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Dave, is that Kenny Atkinson has said, I want Evan to bring the ball up even more. And he's like, I have to kind of push him to do that and say, look, bring the ball up, create the offense. And really, like you said, Evan Mobley has, 6 inches of height on Draymond Green. So it helps him to not only bring the ball up, but see over the defense, create plays. And I think the more confidence that not only Kenny Atkinson shows in Evan Mobley doing that, but his own teammates, I think that goes, that helps Mobley immensely in that role, because he's very efficient with the basketball when he's comfortable and confident. So the more he does this, the more he brings the ball up and sets up the offense and creates things, the more he's going to be comfortable in that role and the better he'll be at it. But remember, we're only 12 games in here, and this is kind of a new experiment for him. But, Brian Windhorst hit the nail on the head when you talk about Evan Mobley getting a rebound, driving down the court, looking for the open man, setting up the offense. That is a very, very Draymond Green-like role. And, I think it's added years to Draymond Green's career in sense of, look, maybe I've lost a step, I've lost some athleticism, but I know how to play and how to set up the offense from a point forward role. So I think that's been, among the many reasons Mobley's kind of point forward role, many reasons why the Cavs are off to this amazing start.
So this is a tweet from another national guy, Zach Lowe, and he tweets out, everything Kenny Atkinson's touches turns to gold right now. Sits the entire core four late in the third quarter. Cleveland blitz Chicago with a group of Jerome, Merrill, LeVert, Wade, and Yang. Ball is popping. Chemistry is off the charts. Garland Mitchell sharing the ball with possessions, each happy to let the other cook as matchups dictate. And that's, when you look at it, Sam, and you've seen all this and watched much more in depth, what's the most impressive thing that you've seen from Kenny Atkinson? I know it's only 12 games, but it's like, all right, this isn't working. He pivots quickly and there's always a next idea.
That's it. It's the in-game adjustments to me that have been his strong point, pushing the right buttons, against the Nets. All looked lost the other night. And he said, you know what, let's try Evan Mobley in 4 guards and see what happens there. Because he said, we couldn't keep up with their speed. So we went with one big guy in Mobley and 4 guards around him. and that really sped up the game even more, got the Cavs back into it, and it ultimately led to them, surprisingly winning a game that they never should have won against the Nets. But it was because of that adjustment there. We saw it against Chicago, right? They're down 9 in the third quarter, late in the third quarter. You go to your bench. It was a total bench. Again, you go small. Dean Wade, your center. You got George Niang in there, Karis LeVert in there, Sam Merrill and Ty Jerome. And this is the lineup that brings you back into the game and gives you a chance to win. And then you get, guys like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Donovan Mitchell finishing the job late. But just the fact that Kenny Atkinson's willing to, look, nothing's working. Let's throw this out there and see if it works. And I think the fact that he has that trust and the belief in his reserves really helps them and makes them feel more comfortable and confident, because the reserves, so far, the bench has been playing, another level. We talk about Evan Mobley, especially Darius Garland's been fantastic. And I think that Kenny Atkinson deserves a lot of credit for that too. But really the reserves have just been on the road. Normally your bench plays terrible. The Cavs bench has been very good on the road so far. Right. And I think that's a big credit to the coaching staff.
Before I let you go, the other thing is the plays that are drawn up out of bounds and when he calls a timeout, they're an unbelievable amount of success with those.
Yeah, you go back years and years. Lenny Wilkins was basically known for that during his tenure of the Cavs in the 90s, early 90s. That he got high praises for after an out of bounds play or call timeout. You have the ball out of bounds and you come up with something that leads to at least a good look. Kenny Atkinson has been the same way in that area, and that's huge because that's the whole reason you call timeout. You need to get a basket, So the Cavs have been fantastic in that department when it comes to not just after timeouts, but during the course of the game, they're able to get good looks at the basket all game. This is a team that is very reminiscent of that 2015-16 Warriors team in style and the way that they play and the confidence with which they play, which is high shooting percentages, good ball movement, guys getting the ball in their shooting pockets, which makes, shooting that much easier. And frankly, this Cavs team's probably not as good offensively as that Warriors team was, but they're a lot better defensively. So there's a little bit of magic here at work, I think, when it comes to all these things coming together. And you hate to say this after 12 games, but it looks like they could be on their way to a special season overall. And it's all of these reasons we just listed and more, everything having come together and, good health and all that stuff. So, fingers crossed for Cavs and their fans, because it's this is extremely promising, the most promising season in the NBA so far.
Sam Amico, hoopswire.com, as well as Full Court Cleveland. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Sam.
All right, thanks for having me. We will chat at you soon, I'm sure.
Sounds good. Sam Amico, make sure you check him out, Amico Hoops. Also, co-host of A Full Court Cleveland. You can catch that on FanDuel TV. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.